There we go. So welcome everyone today. I'm so glad everyone could make it for our Mental Health KC webinar. A little bit about Metro Council. We are the group that puts on all these wonderful webinars that we have on the second and the fourth Thursday of the month from 3:30 to 4:30. I'm Jamie. I am one of the chairs of the working group of Metro Council. And a little bit about Metro Council. So it's a collaborative membership of organizations that represent all the community mental health centers in the Kansas City metro area. And then we provide support, of course, to our member organizations, so all the community mental health centers, as well as education and information and resources to the public, to all of you. So one of the things that we do is that we have webinars that are free to our community. The other thing I wanted to let you all know, and this is new, hot off the press, we are having a conference again, and we're so excited for it. So the Mental Health KC Conference 2022 is happening. It is Thursday, May 12th and Friday, May 13th at Cerner Innovations Campus. So put that on your calendars now. We're really excited for it. It's going to be in person. And so just wanted to give you all a heads up, save the dates. We're excited for it. So want to move on to talking about Nicole, because we have an awesome webinar coming up about the Affirmation Project. So a little bit about Nicole. And Nicole Leth is an artist, a writer, and a human being living in the Midwest. And she built a global clothing and art company at 18, found success, and then chose to leave at 26 to find happiness. And she spent the past decade researching the human healing process and creating public artworks, writings, community events, speaking, and teaching to create soft spaces for real human beings to heal and face trauma with compassion. And she was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award in Advertising in June 2020 for her Affirmation Billboard project, which she is still working on diligently. So thank you, Nicole, for being here, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am really happy to be here. I'm just going to share my screen really fast. Let's see if we can get this going. Perfect. Okay, so like she said, my name is Nicole, and I'm just really excited to be here today talking to you all about this project that I have been working on for the last 3 years almost now. And I'm going to be taking some time to tell you about it today. But as I tell you about this project, I'm also going to be telling you about my journey with self-esteem and all of the twists and turns I have experienced, and some of the experiences I have had regarding self-esteem that have led me to have a deeper understanding about how to create things that support a general sense of self-esteem within communities. So with that being said, I'm going to begin by telling you a story about how I put up 600 billboards around the country to help save lives. But before I tell you that story, there is another story I have to tell you first, and that is my story. And it starts right here. I was born in the Midwest. I was born in Des Moines, Iowa. I have lived in the Midwest for almost my entire life. And growing up, I was a really happy, joyful little kid. I was an only child. My parents both worked a lot, so I just had a lot of alone time. I remember spending a lot of time outside, reading books, writing a lot. I was always very creative. I feel like sometimes only children have to be to spend the time, but I was always drawing, painting, just doing all these creative things. And this guy on the right, he was my best friend. He was my dad. And to me, he was the smartest person in the world. I feel like it's not uncommon to think that your parents are like the smartest people in the world, but I definitely thought he was the smartest. He was constantly teaching me all of these lessons about life. He was constantly telling me about the world and explaining how things worked and why things worked. But he was also telling me about people, and he helps me understand the reasons why people are the way that they are and why they do the things they do. And he always ingrained this deep sense and appreciation of humanity in me. And he taught me that sometimes it's hard to find the humanity in everything, but it is always there. And now that I am growing up, I realize that my dad taught me all of these amazing life lessons, and most of them I'm just becoming aware of like right now because I'm an adult, and I'm an adult now. In this picture, I am 17 years old. I am a senior at my high school in Des Moines, Iowa. I am standing next to my little red car, which was my first car, and I was just learning how to drive it. This photo is taken in the front yard of my best friend's house because I had just dropped her off after just another Friday at high school. And the real truth is, though, when this picture was taken, I was feeling so confused and so stressed because there were only a few months left of high school. And I had no clue what I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. I didn't know if I was going to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do like as a career. And the hardest part was that when I looked around, it seemed like everyone around me, like every one of my peers had it all figured out. And they had this entire life plan. And it was just so confusing because I had no idea what I wanted to do. But what I didn't know in this photo is that in just a few days, everything that I was stressed about was going to feel really, really small, because in just a few days, my entire life was going to change forever. On October 2nd, 2010, I woke up to my mom sitting on the edge of my bed. She was crying quietly and watching me sleep. And I remember feeling really confused because I didn't know how long she had been there. I didn't know why she wasn't waking me up, and I had no idea why she was crying. But it was on that morning of October 2nd, 2010 that she told me that earlier that morning, my dad had committed suicide. And on that day of October 2nd, 2010, I felt my entire childhood end, and I felt myself immediately become an adult. And at 17, this was the biggest heartbreak I had ever experienced. Growing up, my dad had always had his struggles with alcoholism and drug addiction. He always was struggling with mental illness and receiving diagnoses of schizophrenia, personality disorder, depression. And a lot of it stemmed from unresolved trauma that he had from childhood abuse. But the truth is, I was there for every single one of those moments. My family didn't hide it from me. They didn't try to sugarcoat anything. They just presented it to me. And so that meant I was there for every single high moment to celebrate with him. But it also meant I was there for every single hard moment to be present and witness him. So I went to AA meetings with him since I was in the 4th grade. I went to treatment facilities with him. I would drive across the country to go pick him up from places that he had to go. And I realized recently that I never thought he was a bad person, or I never thought that there was anything wrong with any of that. I just thought that he was a real human being that was struggling. And I always had this deep understanding that he was doing the best that he could. So when we lost him, I took it really, really hard because I did not know how to understand or comprehend that he had taken his own life and that this was goodbye. And this was the hardest day of my life. I had never experienced anything like this. And I remember finding out that he was gone and laying down on my bed and just screaming into my pillow and pounding my fists against my mattress and kicking my feet into my mattress and just shaking, crying, sobbing, feeling all of these things I had never felt before. And then all of a sudden, this moment of calm came over me. And it was like a moment of calm that I had never experienced it before. And then all of a sudden, this thought, these ideas, these words popped into my head. And that thought said, maybe you have to fight like hell to create something beautiful out of this pain. And maybe that's the only chance you have at surviving and healing from this. I had always loved art. Like I said, I was a lonely only child. I loved painting and drawing. to make the time go by. But once I lost my dad, I threw myself into my art because it was the only place where I felt safe. It was the only place where I felt understood. And it was the only place that I felt better. I was 17. I didn't know what it would take to heal from losing a parent to suicide. And I also didn't understand the stages of the grieving process and how to juggle them while you were still trying to prepare to go to college and graduate high school. It was all so much to handle. But the one thing that did make me feel better was writing in this little journal that I had. And I would sit there for hours and I would just write all of these things that I desperately wish somebody was telling me. I was writing all of these things that I desperately needed to hear, all of these poems, all these affirmations, lyrics, paragraphs, just all of these words that were acting as a way of self-soothing. And then I would do this thing where I would start painting these things that I was writing in my journal onto the walls of my bedroom. I would use acrylic paint. I would use spray paint. Sometimes I would just grab a Sharpie and go over and write something up really fast that I was thinking about. And the truth is, this started to help me feel better. And I think it was something that really began my healing process. And I realized that I wanted to try to do this in a bigger and more public way, because there was something really healing about writing these really intimate things and then putting them up in a bigger and slightly more public place. And I considered the idea that maybe if it helped me so much, maybe it would help other people too. So for the rest of my senior year of high school, you could find me every single weekend in my little red car with my plastic Walmart bag full of spray paint and a journal, driving around my hometown of Des Moines, finding these abandoned walls, abandoned warehouses, abandoned buildings. And I would graffiti all of these things that I was writing for myself in the journal up onto these walls. And I guess you could technically say this is where the work that I'm doing now got its start. But when I look at a goofy picture like this photo of me at 17 standing in front of one of the walls that I graffitied, I just feel a lot of compassion, because this version of me was trying her hardest to make sense out of something that didn't really make sense at all. And I believe that this version of me was fighting to establish some type of self-esteem in a moment that was really complicated to digest. And I'm really, really proud of this version of me when I look back on this photo. So I eventually went on to graduate high school, and I moved out of my sleepy Iowa town, and I moved to the big city, which for me was Kansas City, Missouri. I attended art school at the Kansas City Art Institute. And it was here at age 18 in college for the first time where I learned about another type of heartbreak that exists in this world. And that is the heartbreak you feel when you fall in love for the first time with someone that you think is really, really great, but they're secretly a jerk and they cheat on you and break your heart for the first time. This happened to me when I was 18. And I feel like there are so many people out there who know exactly what this feeling is like your first major heartbreak. It's kind of universal. But this was my first major boyfriend, and I could have sworn it would last forever. I could have sworn we were going to get married. All of those things that we all feel. So when it ended, I remember being in my dorm room, again, laying face down on my dorm room bed, screaming into my pillow, banging my fists onto the mattress, shaking, crying, feeling like the entire world was going to fall down. And then all of a sudden, this moment of calm came over me. And it felt like that moment of calm from the day that my dad died, when I was in my room. And then that thought popped into my head again. And I realized that maybe this was another time that I had to fight like hell to create something meaningful out of something painful, that maybe this was another opportunity to try to create something beautiful out of something that was just a lot of broken pieces. And I remembered this quote that I had heard sometime in my younger years. And that quote said that sometimes the best way to get over somebody who has broken your heart is to chase your wildest dreams and show that person that they are not one of your wildest dreams anymore. And today, like sitting in front of you, I am 28 years old. This was a full decade ago. And this version of me does not know how she feels about this quote. She doesn't really feel anything about it, but she definitely doesn't feel inspired. But let me tell you, when I was a heartbroken 18-year-old, this quote was everything to me. It made me fired up. I was so riled. I was like, yes, this is what I am going to do. This is how I'm going to empower myself. And at 18 years old, my biggest dream in the entire world was to start a clothing line. So because I was inspired by this quote, I decided to do that. I taught myself how to sew. I taught myself how to screen print. I started selling things on Etsy. I got a job managing the local t-shirt shop so I could learn about the business behind selling clothes. And honestly, things just kind of started happening really slowly, but really surely. And when it finally came time for me to put a name to this crazy dream revenge clothing line I had started, I chose something that was very specific to the reason why I had even started it in the first place. I chose something that would only ever mean something to my ex-boyfriend if he were to ever find out about this clothing line. I named it Sex and Ice Cream because him and I would always do this thing where after we would have sex, we would eat ice cream. And he would always be like, Nicole, sex and ice cream is our thing. You'll never have it with anyone else. It'll only ever be our thing. So when everything fell apart, I thought it felt really empowering to name the clothing line Sex and Ice Cream as a way to reclaim it and say, no, sex and ice cream can be my thing and I can make it whatever I want. And again, 28-year-old Nicole sitting here today is like, whoa, that is kind of petty. That's kind of revengey. I'm not sure how I feel about that, if I would ever do that again. But when you are heartbroken and you are a teenager, this feels brave and this feels empowering and this makes sense. And I think this is a way I was beginning to understand what building my self-esteem and regaining my agency over myself felt like. So I kept working. I worked my butt off at Sex and Ice Cream. And I spent my entire time while I was in college growing my business. I remember being in class all day, going to work at the t-shirt shop after school, and then spending all night in studio sewing new things for my business, fulfilling orders, learning new skills. And as I got more confident sewing and actually making clothing, I found myself returning to that idea I had when I was 17, that idea of writing all of the things that I needed to hear in my journal for myself, and then sharing it in a bigger and more public way. So I started scanning the pages from my journal into the computer and creating all of these clothing and prints out of these really intimate and vulnerable confessions and affirmations and thoughts that I was having at the time. And something really crazy started happening. People started to catch on. They said that the rawness of the writing and the journal entries and the confessions and affirmations on t-shirts and clothing made them feel stronger and feel more seen and feel more connected and validated in the things that they were going through, because a lot of them were going through these things and they thought they were alone in what they were going through. And here I realized that self-esteem is a lot about feeling connected and feeling a sense of shamelessness in what you're experiencing. And I can remember feeling really happy when this was all happening, because this was the idea I cared about the most, about writing these things that I desperately needed to hear myself, and then share them in a public way so that maybe somebody else out there who needed to hear them could hear them too. And then maybe they would feel a little bit better, and then maybe they would feel a little bit stronger. And I knew I wanted to do more. So I ran with this idea and I started making stickers, a ton of stickers. They said all these different types of things. And they were all things that I wanted people to remember, because at this point in my life, I needed help remembering these exact things too. And I would bring this thick stack of stickers with me everywhere I went. I was leaving these stickers everywhere. I would leave them, like stick them on the walls of the Starbucks drive-through. I would leave them in public restrooms, restaurants, give them to people, send them to people. But I still wanted to do more. I decided I wanted to open a real store for Sex and Ice Cream in downtown Kansas City. This was right after I graduated college. I was 22 years old, which to me now feels so young. And honestly, I was still trying to figure out everything in my life. When I looked around at my friends and all of my peers, I still had the thought that they had it all figured out, that they had all these life plans. They were beginning to get these fancy jobs that had things like retirement plans and whatever a 401k is. But the thing that I cared about, the only thing that made sense to me, was that I wanted to create a literal space that people could come into and feel loved and feel seen and find things that felt like therapy for whatever they were going through in their lives. And I knew I wanted to paint the walls all of these really happy colors. And I wanted to sew and design and write all of these things that were really meaningful. And in the end, it turned out exactly the way I always dreamed that it would. And on opening night, there was this line of hundreds of people around the city block in downtown Kansas City. And almost all of the products in my store sold out. I'll never forget that feeling of walking around after the store opened and seeing all the empty shelves. It was indescribable. I was so proud because this represented so much more than just a successful store opening. This represented a heartbroken 18-year-old who chose to empower herself after a breakup and chase her dreams and learn to work hard and maybe build her self-esteem just a little bit. And after I opened my store, people started to catch on, and all of a sudden, things started happening really, really, really fast. And I learned that people connected with the story behind why I started my business, because everyone understands in some way, shape, or form what it feels like to be heartbroken. And I think that everyone wants to believe in this idea of creating something big out of something bad. But most importantly, I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel connected. And everyone wants to feel like they're not alone. And everyone wants to feel seen in the hard things that they are experiencing in their lives. And I just kept coming back to this idea that had gotten me here. This idea of being strong enough to find the good in the bad. That was the idea that made all of this happen for me. I thought of 17-year-old Nicole with her spray paint and her desire to heal herself and then help other people heal. And I realized that I wanted to do more. So I worked at it more. I experimented with new and unique ways to share my writing and to speak to people in the real ways that I needed to be spoken to too. I opened these stores across the country, multiples of them. I painted them all these different colors. I started selling my products around the world. I hired all these employees, started working with these factories, got all these Instagram followers, made all this money, and then everything started going faster and faster and faster. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one day I woke up and everything stopped. And on that morning, I realized that I wasn't happy. And I realized that I was really tired. And I realized that somewhere along the way, I had lost myself in this crazy, wild dream of an 18-year-old girl. And somewhere along the way, this business and this dream had become a distraction. And it had distracted me from the things that I really needed to be looking at in myself and the things that I still needed to heal. And I realized that the most powerful people in this country want you to believe that the only way to be happy is to be successful. And the only way to be successful is to have money and power. And I realized I don't think that that's true. At least it wasn't for me. And so I wanted to spend time redefining what success could really look like and redefining what the outlets to happiness really were. The real truth was, I started Sex and Ice Cream because I was a pissed off teenager and I wanted revenge on an ex-boyfriend. But at this point in my life, I was 25. My life was a lot different. And really, I just wasn't that angry anymore. And then all of a sudden, this moment of calm came over me. That same moment of calm that had been finding me in my lowest moments. And then I thought of this idea, that idea that had been following me around since I had been 17 years old. Be strong enough to find the good in the bad. Be strong enough to create, to fight, to create something beautiful out of that bad. And I knew what I had to do because I knew that my life was giving me another chance to practice that. It was giving me another chance to advocate for my sense of self-esteem and understand my healing journey. So I closed my stores, every single one of them. I deleted my Instagram. I let go of everyone and everything that I had built in that 10 years of my life. And I started over. I took time and I traveled around the world and I visited all of these colorful, bright, happy places that I had always wanted to visit, but I never had the time to. I remember that I wanted to see beautiful things in the world because I wanted to be reminded of all of the ways that this life and the people in it are beautiful, because they are. And I feel like when you're around beautiful things, it's when you start to realize that you are deserving of beautiful things and that everyone is deserving of beautiful things, and they're also capable of creating beautiful things in their life. And while I was in those beautiful places, I finally found quiet. And I finally looked at the parts of myself that still hurt. And then I started to heal. And I started to learn about resilience and this amazing human ability we all have to adapt and persevere the things that we are experiencing in our lives. During this time, I met a guy who made me really, really happy. And he would later go on to become my husband. And he is the first romantic partner in my life who treated me like a human being. And learning to be loved by him was a huge part of my healing process and my journey to self-esteem. And here I learned that beauty looks a lot like this too, about fighting and advocating for yourself to be loved in healthy and functional ways. I started writing again during this time about all of the things that I wanted to talk about all of the things that I needed to hear myself. And I thought about 17-year-old Nicole fearlessly jumping into this world with her plastic bag full of spray paint. And I made peace with her. And then I sent her love. And I thought about my dad and all of the things he taught me about life and love and humanity. And then I made peace with him. And I sent him love. And I was finally ready to start over. And so I did. I was writing more and more and more those days, and I started writing my affirmations for myself in my little journal. I started printing those affirmations on stickers again. I started handing them out at the yoga teaching job I was at. I started mailing them to people, leaving them all over the place. And then people started to tell me that it mattered and that it helped them. And then I began to feel like maybe it mattered. And it was here that I learned something about love. I learned that when you love more, you heal more. And when you send love out into the world, it helps other people heal. And then they love more too. It's all cyclical. And every person in this world deserves love, and every single person in this world deserves healing. And that's when everything gets really, really, really interesting. If in June of 2019, I saved my paychecks from a job I was at the time. And I rented a billboard in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. On it, I printed affirmations that I had been writing for myself. These were things that I was thinking about every day. These were words that I desperately wanted somebody to tell me. These were things I desperately wanted to tell my dad, to every person out there who was struggling. I didn't tell anybody in the world that I was putting up this billboard. I did not put my name on it. I did not take credit for it. I didn't have social media, so I couldn't post it somewhere. I just did it because it felt important. I remember at this time, everything felt chaotic in the world. When I turned on the news, there was just negativity and hate and abuse. And the only thing that made sense to me was to put love up in a big way and let it exist there for people who might need it. because that's what felt beautiful. I eventually shared a photo with a few friends, and then they shared a photo with a few friends, and then those friends shared the photo to a few friends. And then one day I woke up and realized that it had gone viral on the internet. And then I got the opportunity to share the story behind why I had done what I did and what I hoped to achieve. And then hundreds of thousands of people reached out and told me that it helped and that it mattered and that it made them feel stronger in the things that they were going through in their life that they thought they were alone in. And I finally felt like I had gotten something right. I felt like maybe I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And like maybe my life put me exactly where I was supposed to be. Advertising companies from around the world reached out and donated free billboard space to me. So I took my little journal, I wrote more affirmations, I wrote more words, and then I designed new billboards and I brought them to places that I had never even been before. This is a photo of a billboard that still to this day floats around Manhattan. I partnered with mental health advocates and charities and corporations in small towns and communities around the country who are underrepresented in the mental health space. We wanted to bring compassion and accessible love to those people too. In September of 2019, I had the opportunity to put up over 400 billboards around the entire country to support Suicide Prevention Month. I took the entire month off from my job. I got into my little red car and I drove around to see as many of these billboards as I could. And I stood in front of them and I looked up at them. And I tried to understand the significance of all of it because I really wanted to understand what all of it really meant. Because it finally felt like maybe I had gotten it right. It felt like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. It felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. It felt like everything in my life, every single bad day, every single heartbreak, every single trauma had purpose, and that all of it mattered. I've been working nonstop on this project for almost 3 years now. I'm still writing continuously in my little journal, and I'm still sharing those words that help heal me in a public way. I'm constantly thinking and digesting and listening to the best ways to offer support and compassion in the world right now. And the best ways to create spaces of healing and affirmation and to reach people in a meaningful and intimate way and to offer them compassionate connection. My main goal is to always integrate free and accessible spaces of compassion into the world today in public ways. That is my purpose with this project. I started putting affirmations on the fronts of abandoned storefronts. I started putting posters of affirmations near bus stops and on walls in big cities. This is in Los Angeles. My husband and I started making affirmation quilts. We hand sew the quilts out of old clothing. And then I sit at my kitchen table and I hand paint the lettering. On the quilt, we put a little note that says whoever finds the quilt can keep it and do whatever they want with it. I started floating affirmations around on the ocean. That was kind of cool. I started driving affirmations around city streets on the backs of semi-trucks. Last year on my birthday, so last February, I rented an airplane and pulled an affirmation in an airplane banner around the skies of Miami for a whole afternoon. right after I put up my first billboard in 2019, I started sending out affirmation postcards too. I send the postcards out every single month, almost 2 months now, and they're always sent out anonymously. I don't put my name on them. There's no website. They just arrive at somebody's house with their name and a stamp on it. That's what it looks like. And every single month I sit down with my journal and I write out the things that I wish somebody would say to me that month. And then I design them on the computer and print them on a postcard. And every single month they say something different. But I always try to write something that I need to hear too. So they always represent that. On the first month that I sent these out, I created a website where people could put in their name and their address to sign up to receive these postcards, or sign people they loved up to receive these postcards. And on the first month, I got 250 names in my sign up sheet. So I sat at my kitchen table and I hand addressed 250 postcards, and I sent out 250 postcards into the world. And now I send out 5,000 postcards every month to 2 months. And for the longest time, I sat at that kitchen table and I hand addressed every single one of those. So in the last 2 years, I have sent out over 60,000 postcards to people from all over the world. And I don't have words yet to understand or comprehend what that really means, but that number means something really amazing to me. I send the postcards to cities in countries and continents that I've never even been to. Like last month, I sent one to someone in Sri Lanka, and that is just the most amazing thing. And the truth is that all of this makes me feel so happy, because it makes me feel the way the billboards do, the way that the airplane banner does, the way that the graffiti did, because I get to write words that help me heal. And then I share those words in a public way, and maybe it helps other people heal too. And today, that is what feels purposeful. I just created a card with Hallmark. And they reached out to me and they wanted to support the project. So they put an image of my first billboard on a Hallmark card. It is sold in every CVS, every Walgreens, and every Walmart around the world. And I don't have words yet to explain to you what that means to me, but I know that it says something about the power of love. I actually just found it for the first time in a store about 2 months ago, and I don't have words for that moment either, but it was so special. So I have really big goals for this project. Like, one of my biggest goals has been to put a billboard in Times Square. Like, that would be so cool to do someday. I'd also love to rent a section of the interstate and put up a whole bunch of affirmation billboards so that people who are driving by can have a conversation with the affirmations and the compassion. I would also just love to write a book someday about compassion and about all of these people in this world and what it means to them and what they need from each other. So I was supposed to tell you a story about how I put up 600 billboards around the country to help save lives. But I don't really think that's the story I told you, not all the way at least. I think I started by telling you a story about how a breakup inspired me to chase my dreams. But that's not really the whole story either. It kind of turned into a story about how I walked away from success to heal myself, but there was still more to it. I think maybe the story I told you was one about how healing myself allowed me to heal other people. But I think the real story was about how I learned to create beauty out of the hard parts of my life, and then how I shared that beauty with the world. So I want to say thank you so much for listening to my talk. This project means everything to me, and it's literally the reason that I am here today. It saved my life. I've included a little information page right here. The project runs off of donations. I will never, ever, ever charge anyone for any of my affirmation products. I want them to be free. That's the way compassion should be in my brain. So oftentimes people who want to support the project do so by donating. definitely not required. The second thing that I want to tell you is if you want to sign up to receive free affirmation postcards, you can go to myaffirmationproject.com. I have a sign up sheet. You can sign yourself up and your loved ones up, and I will send them anonymous affirmation postcards for a year. So thank you so much. That is everything that I have to share, and I would love to hear questions if you have any.
I don't know what happened to my light, but that's okay. If anybody has any questions, just type it into the chat, or you can type it into the Q&A, and I'll read them off and Nicole can answer them. So there's
Nicole, do you have any like vetting process? Are all those writings your own, or do you ever use somebody else's words, or how do you do that?
They are always my own writing. I never use anybody else's. It always is just my own, because that is what I consider my art form, is the writing always coming from me. So always me.
And for the audience, I can vouch that the postcards do come if you sign up. My wife signed up and got her card and was thrilled.
Okay, so we do have one question. So how are you able to send mass email, or sorry, how are you able to send mass mail to different countries, states, etc.?
So the process looks like this. I order blank postcards with my design printed on them from a printer. And then I have a spreadsheet of everyone who has signed up, and I write everyone's address on each one of those postcards. And then I order 5,000 postcard stamps from the post office, and I stamp them and send them out. So that's kind of my process. I know that a lot of people have reached out wanting me to like hire somebody to send them out for me, but right now it feels important to send out the mass mailings to people like that.
So I guess so I think you kind of answered the question. So the question was like, how do you get addresses to people that sign up?
Yes.
And then another question is, can you please post the links in the chat?
Oh yeah, I can post the links in the chat. It is just myaffirmationproject.com.
Okay, so the link is myaffirmationproject.com. So you can go to that website and sign up, right, Nicole?
Yes, exactly.
So we have a lot of thank yous. I'm going to read them to you because I think it's important that we share that positivity, and especially when somebody has something nice to say.
Thank you.
So the ones that we've gotten so far is, I love all you're doing, so inspiring. Thank you so much for what you are doing, amazing. So powerful and beautiful, thank you. What an amazing journey, I love this concept. What an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing your story, it's amazing and so heartfelt. I love this so much. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. I agree. Thank you so much for what you do. What an amazing difference you're making. You are amazing, Nicole. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. That's so nice.
There's more. You're amazing, Nicole. Loved learning about your project. You are definitely doing your purpose in the world. Thank you for what you do. Very powerful story. You're making a difference. Thank you very much. And this person said, I'm visually impaired, and this is really helpful for healing.
Oh.
There are in the questions. Well, I'll go along with the more happy. Thank you. This is by far the best webinar I have ever attended. You are amazing. Oh. But this is one I'd love to hear your response to. Okay. I am trying to write in a journal, but every time I get ready to write, my mind is a blank. What helps you to write?
That's a really good question. It's been a learning curve with me because I feel like oftentimes when I have wanted to really sit down and journal, sometimes I don't have anything, like nothing in my brain either. And so I've started doing this process where whenever I carry a journal with me, and then whenever I have an idea or whenever I feel compelled to write something, I do it right then, even if it's not convenient, even if I'm like having to pull over and park in a parking lot somewhere. I kind of let my inspiration internally or my need to journal dictate when I journal. And that's the way that I've found success, because, I had a lot of problems trying to like set a concrete time to write every day. Like I don't necessarily have something I need to write about every single morning at 8 a.m. So instead, letting my need to vent or write or, do that dictate when I do it has really helped me and been a great process.
Excellent. And again, so if there are those of us who would like to support you, I think you gave us the PayPal.
Yes, and the easiest way, if any of you are interested in any of that, if you just go to my website, myaffirmationproject.com, there's a whole tab with donation options and all of the accompanying links. So that's the easiest way.
So we do have another question. So do young people get to hear your story? You and your story are beautiful.
Well, thank you. And yes, they do. I actually just finished a lecture series with all of the high schools in the Kansas City area this week. So I'm beginning to tell it to young people, and I hope that I have more opportunities to tell it to young people, because when I was young, I think I would have benefited from hearing a story like this.
And we also have, thanks a lot. This was a nice way to end the day. So, okay. So I know you answered this, but we do have a question about it. So do you live in the Kansas City area?
That's a great question. I just moved away from Kansas City. I lived there for 10 years, from 2011 to 2021. And I just moved to Los Angeles about 6 weeks ago, so right around Christmas. So I just left Kansas City. It was a great place. I will always love it. But I'm here in LA trying to push myself to grow in different ways now.
So the website name, somebody asked about the website name, myaffirmationproject.com.
Yes.
And then another comment we have, just another thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I know that this is just the beginning. You are an amazing person. Your life changed, and just think of how many lives you are changing. So,
thank you. Thank you so much.
So any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Nicole. That was incredible. It was incredible to hear your story and just the amazing work you're doing, and really how we can all live our life and our purpose. And I think that was like a big part of your message, is that we all have a purpose. And there are different ways to go about doing it. And but it's really important for us to be true to ourselves, and to help the world to help the world be a better place also. I don't think you specifically said that, but that's what I got from it also.
Yeah, absolutely. That's everything. Yes.
So I just want to invite everyone. We do have another webinar coming up, the fourth Thursday of the month. So February 24th from 3:30 to 4:30. And that is, that webinar is going to be with the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. And that focuses on integrated healthcare. So that is the focus. And again, we want to invite all of you to save the date for our Mental Health KC conference. We will be having national keynote speakers. We'll be having many breakout sessions. And if you know of anybody that wants to present, have them look at our website. It should be up in the next day or so. Probably in the next 24 hours. We are looking for speakers for the conference. So if you know of anybody, or you yourself might want to be a speaker, fill out that very easy application, and we'd love to see you all. So again, save the date, May 12th and May 13th. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Dan, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, because I know this is one of the webinars we've had that is applicable to more than just the mental health clinician community. This will be posted on the MHKC website, and if you would like to share it with somebody who you think might benefit from the message, I'm sure that you can find it and share it.
Yeah. So
thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
for figuring out the time change.
Oh, yes. Thanks for inviting me.
And I should say, if anybody has any extra, oh, never mind. Say if anybody had any extra questions, we'd be on for a few minutes, but I think we're done. So yeah. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day, and hope to see everybody again in a couple of weeks. Thank you.